Oh no. Hi guys, it's Sophie. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be doing a part rant review, part critique of LightLark. So I've heard nothing but horrible things about this book, and I've heard claims about the author being an industry plant and all this stuff. I'm not really gonna get into the industry plant stuff. You can watch other videos about that. But I figured, if I'm gonna keep talking about this book to my friends, I should probably actually sit down and read it. Plus, I'm just curious if what people say is true. Is it really as bad as it sounds? I mean, we'll go ahead and see. So here it is. Let's take a look at LightLark. Okay, so this is going to be my first in-depth book review. Yay! And as such, I think it's important to lay out what my expectations are before I pick it up, and also to give you a sort of rubric of what I look for in order to determine the quality of the prose. Nothing too formal. I'm not like a college professor or anything. And a book not unfurling the way I expected it to isn't exactly a bad thing. Perhaps the twist really surprised me, and that was a good twist, so it flipped my expectations in a good way. But in terms of just quality, mainly, that's what we're going to talk about right now. Comp titles. So LightLark is described as a mix of A Court of Thorns and Roses and The Hunger Games. Okay. So let's get the ACOTAR one out of the way. Y'all know I will take any chance to take my pot shots, but if you're telling me your book is like ACOTAR, then I'm expecting the blandest main character, vaguely following some sort of fairy tale plot. People say that ACOTAR is court intrigue, and not really. I mean, are there politics? Yeah. But it's not like Feyre and Rhysand navigate through them in the way one would think of when thinking of court intrigue. I mean, it is a tough genre, not gonna lie. All the fighting has to be sneaky, and the tiniest slip could have disastrous consequences. All of your players within the court have to have their own motivations that create a web of complications. Also, you'd have to world build your courts to make sense, because part of the perilous navigation is through the rules and conventions of the society that you build. But as far as I remember, the courts in ACOTAR don't have the typical structure of courts that we think of. So I guess my only explanation then is to expect there will be hot and sexy fae men, a romance plot, and powers. So for the Hunger Games, my expectations would be that there's some sort of game where people are forced to fight to the death. Actually, not just people, but specifically an oppressed group of people that are forced to participate in a fight to the death. Because that's what the Hunger Games is all about. There's a group of people in power, living in luxury, and they are the ones forcing the lower class into these games, not only just to keep them in place, but also for their own entertainment. Similarly, a lot of people say, oh yeah, Battle Royale came first, and Hunger Games is just a knockoff, but I mean, it's the same idea. By the way, I've seen Battle Royale, and that is disturbing, but in the way that it should be disturbing. But the idea is the same, in that the totalitarian government forces these children to participate in death matches because their idea is that they want to suppress juvenile delinquency, because suppressing even the smallest hint of rebellious act it's tyranny 101. So that being said, if you're going to do a Hunger Games plot, then there better be commentary about that. These two works are not horrific because of just the core concept, but they're horrific because the games within them are sponsored. The ones in the higher power are a-okay using the lives of children as pawns and spectacle. I would hope then that LightLark would have a similar commentary. World building. Okay, so my editor is a non-binary autistic who has hyperfixations. You will see that later in animals and world building. So as you can imagine, I am stuck in a hell where I have to learn exactly what is good and what's bad world building. And after the boot camp I've been through, it's hard to say. Honestly, I think good world building comes down to, if you construct a world and introduce various concepts, and they don't make the reader question themselves to the point of breaking immersion, then you've done your job. World building is one of those things where it's like graphic design. People only notice it if you do it badly. Basically, this is my question. Did you think about your concept before I had to think about it? The romance. Okay, so this is a romantasy, so let's talk about the romance. I know that the main male love interest is a tall, dark, and handsome, which, I mean, anyone who knows me knows I love my bastard men. I love horrible men, and men that are just the worst. But there's this thing about the bastard men, okay? They have to be interesting, and they have to have their redeeming qualities, you know? It's an easy archetype to mess up, and not everyone can pull them off well. They can't just be, you know, dark, and that's it. They can't. They can't be suave and in control 100% of the time. In fact, seeing how they act when things aren't under their control is essential. More importantly, I need to see vulnerability. That's the key. I need to see how hard honesty is for them. I need to see them terrified of opening up. I need to see the light in their eyes when their trust pays off. If this male, I sound like Akatar, if this male love interest can give me that, then I might like them. As for the romance in general, I can either go slow or moderate burn. Insta-love is not really my thing, but I can get behind insta-lust just because that feels a bit more realistic to me. I don't know what trope was like marketed with this book, but I'm guessing it's an enemies to lovers. I could be wrong. Either way, I need to see a mutual respect building. I need to see bits and pieces that show, hey, this person is special to me because of this. Like these bits about us fit together well in this jigsaw puzzle. And I need to see that on both sides. I need to be able to cite the chemistry moments. A good romance shows me how two or more people fit together and complement each other. And that's why I like to go for more opposites attract, but that's not necessarily like required. I want to see why they like each other before they love each other. Understand? Plot. Okay, I'm just looking for solid plot. There's a through line, there's a clear goal, may or may not be met thanks to complications, and characters, I want to see, you know, memorable characters, ones that I can pick apart. And if I'm going through the plot and I'm not saying, well, why don't they just do this? Or why don't they just do, like, if I'm asking too many questions that are breaking the immersion, it's not a good plot. So before I formally begin, I asked my editor, Luke, if they could provide some insight and second opinions on the world building and the plot. So what I got was this. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, all right. So Luke, can you just for background give us your expertise on world building and why you think you have a good opinion on world building?
Well, it's been a hobby of mine since I was I want to say maybe 13 years old. And I mean, I'm turning 24 in a couple of weeks, so we're nearing a decade on the hobby side.
Okay.
But, you know, anyone can have a hobby. It's one thing to have a hobby, it's another thing to actually be good at the damn thing, you know? I mean, I consider myself exceptionally well-read on the manor. Unlike some people here, I've actually read all of Lord of the Rings.
That's a read. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll read, because I'm well-read. Got him.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you kind of general, both world-building questions, but also, well, Luke, you and I...
I wasn't finished flexing my pedigree.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Continue.
I also am such an insane person with our D&D setting. That's
that
right, YouTube audience. I run a D&D game for the Scoober, and also a completely separate text RP in the same setting, with coherent world building between the two, and both of them sharing a timeline. I am very sane and well-adjusted in normal life.
Yes,
also, I'm
correct.
Autistic. I feel like
You're autistic.
That could have been used to explain all of this from the start.
And one of your hyperfixations is world building.
Yeah. I've been navigating the mess of Star Wars canon since even before I really knew the term world building.
Okay, so I'm going to read you a couple of passages, and as I was saying, yes, we will play D&D. Luke, but you and I, we're both big fantasy, like, game fans as well, correct?
Yeah, we're very epic gamers in this household.
And so whenever we come across, and we've played a lot of games is what I'm trying to get at, and so whenever we come across something in a book, most likely a book, because books are not play tested. If we come across something in the book that seems, that does not seem balanced, we have a good eye for that kind of thing.
I mean, I don't know if it comes from games necessarily for me. I'm very, very finicky on how a writer handles their magic systems because as soon as why don't you just solve it with magic becomes the question you ask for every problem, your magic system might be a little bit poorly thought out.
Great, because I have a great segue to that.
Oh, lovely.
So, Luke, I am reading this book called LightLark. I have heard very infamous things about it. I have heard that its world building is not good. Its magic system is confusing and also not good. And as I am reading, I'm only 5 chapters in, and I'm starting to think that they were correct when they said things like that. But we are going to give it a fair chance. I'm going to read to you passages, both of world building and like the magic system, and I would like us to have a discussion about it. How do you feel about that?
Mostly dread, to be honest.
Okay, well, we're gonna start. So remember when we were talking about magic system? Okay, so chapter 1.
Okay, we're just gonna get right to it, huh?
We're gonna get right to it. Okay, chapter 1. The passage says, "She held her star stick tightly, her breath bottled in her chest like rare perfumes," which I'm gonna skip the stupidity of that metaphor for a second. So the star stick, what does it do? The star stick basically allows her to, like Disney Channel draw like a puddle of stars that she can jump into, and she can teleport basically wherever she wants.
Like, it does it have to be a place she knows, a place she's seen?
So it just says a place. The first time that she uses a star stick, she goes somewhere that she doesn't know because she doesn't know anything outside her bedroom. She's like sheltered and stuff.
Then how did she get to the right place?
That's a fantastic question. I wish I could answer. So, I thought, okay, the star stick, it basically lets her teleport anywhere, and I'm assuming, because this was not confirmed in the book, I'm assuming that if she knows the place, it's easier for her to get to it, like, if she thinks about it and she draws a stick and she goes, right? Mm-hmm. Assuming, because again, not confirmed in the book. Is it OP?
I mean, that depends on the rarity of the item, I think.
So, as far as I know, the relic, it's called a relic. It's a relic that belongs to a different kingdom, and there's only one of it. But she just somehow had it because her mom had it. So, she just starts with it.
Given the fact that you're not that far in the book does mean there could be an explanation for how it wound up in her mom's hands and how it wound up in her daughter's hands. I'm not going to necessarily hold my breath for that, but in the spirit of not being cinema sins, I feel like we got to say that.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to get at is, I kind of feel that having a teleportation this early on, I think you could work with it, but the problem is I feel as though that this is going to open up plot holes, because I guarantee you a lot of stuff that this book is going to set up could have been easily avoided if someone just teleported.
Yeah, that's what I'm probably, I mean, scratch probably. That's what I imagine is going to happen as well.
Okay. All right. Anyway.
Writers writing teleportation magic really need to be careful with that.
I also just want to point out, because you were asking me while I was looking at 5e tools earlier, I was curious and I decided to do just a little bit of research. Now, I do want to say this, grain of salt, I know Dungeons & Dragons is not like the most balanced at all. Like I know it's not.
You're going to start my tangent on Forgotten Realms if you go too long with this. Just a fair warning.
No, don't worry. So, I know it's not balanced, but it is like play tested, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it is, fairly play tested ish. So, people have a general idea of like how well the magic is sort of balanced. But
MCDM's new RPG coming to you sometime in 2025. It's going to be so much better. They're not sponsoring us.
They're not sponsoring. They should, but they're not. So the note that I basically made is that, okay, if you want to teleport in Dungeons & Dragons, you need, if you're like a sorcerer or wizard, you need to be at least level 13 out of 20, which a lot of campaigns will not go to level 20 because it's ridiculous. We're not going to get into that. But, so even if your campaign did somehow go to level 13... that's a long time. That's probably towards the end of your campaign that you get teleportation magic. And I also want to say that the spell teleport has a lot of room for error in terms of like if you're not absolutely sure where you're going, you're gonna end up somewhere that you didn't intend to be. So that's all I wanted to, that's all I wanted to kind of just add, just like food for thought. Like, okay, usually if you were going to quote unquote fairly get this power, it would be a long time from now, because the game, Dungeons and Dragons, the game knows that teleportation can be exploited, is what I'm trying to say.
Which is why most games don't go to level 20.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
in addition
point,
to the time sink.
In addition to the time sink, I think that's the point I'm trying to get here, is that I don't think it's a problem so far that she has this star stick, but I am guessing that perhaps in the future this author did not consider how OP that could be at, like, let's say level 1, okay? Because this is the beginning of the story. This is literally chapter 1. Okay. All right, so that's the star stick. So now that was just one thing. Let me actually get into the actual world building of this, and this is going to be a little bit long, but bear with me. Okay, there's 6 realms. Okay, I know maybe your question would be, well, are these realms like Norse mythology realms or different? I'm gonna say this is weird. This is a fantasy book that, as far as my knowledge is, there's no map. Which is like, how are you gonna publish a fantasy book without a map? But I digress. I think they're just islands, but they're called realms. But I think they're like on the same planet, so to speak. They're just islands. That's my guess.
That's a bizarre thing to not be made clear. It's pretty fundamental part of the setting.
It's not clear at all.
Like, even if the author has an internal map, but like for some reason, let's say their publisher didn't want them to put it in. Like, what kind of fantasy is this overall? Like, how would you describe this subgenre?
This is considered romantic fantasy. So.
Okay. So, like, my guess, is it like YA romantasy or adult?
No,
romantasy?
It's like adult. Because I think they're smut. I don't remember. I don't know.
Okay. Then in that case, I am. Look, I hate the term devil's advocate because the devil is a lawyer who judges your soul. That bitch needs no advocate.
Ooh,
and also that implies you're siding.
That's a raw ass line.
Yeah, I stole it from a theologist buddy of mine.
Continue.
But anyhow, it also implies that you're siding with the bad point of view that you're, trying to get behind here.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that the publishers were like, horny 20-something-year-old women don't care about maps. They only care about sex and kissing. Thus the publisher pressured them not to put a map in.
Which I would usually agree with you, but ACOTAR had a map, remember? And ACOTAR was just very smart.
Yeah, but I wish it didn't.
I wish it didn't too, but don't worry, folks. We're gonna have a world building series, and we're gonna get into why the ACOTAR map sucks, but not now.
Okay, you're gonna make me cry.
I know. Anyway, so there are 6 realms. Again, I think they're islands, not made clear. Okay, so there's a wildling realm, a starling realm, moonling, skyling, sunling, and nightshade. Now, normally...
Why is one of them not ling? Is that significant, or...?
It's significant because that's where the Bat Boy is from.
Oh, of course.
Okay, but anyway, I'll be honest, I know some people dig at them for like, well, why is like star different from sun, different from sky, different from moon? And it's like, usually I would agree with you, but unfortunately there is precedent for this. Even in like D&D lore, like there is a sun god and then there's a god of the dawn. So
I mean, I don't know if you even need to get into D&D. That's just a real world history thing, It
is also just a real world.
Medieval people did not necessarily see the sun as a star. They thought that was a planet. Anything in the sky at night was a planet to them. Right.
So again, like, that is the one time we are kind of sort of playing devil's advocate. The one thing I will say though, it is weird. The thing that is weird is that you have star, moon, sky, sun, and night, which, the sky, like, that's basically, like, different, like, sky things. And then you have wildling. That's the one that I'm kind of like, why?
Yeah, it feels like they had a theme here and they dropped it.
Yeah, I will say, just for your own knowledge, Luke, wildling is where the MC is from, the main character.
Uh-huh. Then, actually, I feel like it's less they had a theme and lost it, and more... They accidentally developed a sky theme and didn't consider this or think to go back and edit it.
Didn't consider this and didn't go back to edit it, I think is going to be a big theme here. Now, this is...
Oh, my stars and garters.
I read this and I literally wrote a note saying, I need to ask Luke this and record it because I need to talk about... We just need to talk about it. Okay. So there's six realms. Each of them has their own curse, okay? Which I'm like, okay, cool. So it says their strengths return into their own personal poisons. I'm reading this verbatim. Each curse was uniquely wicked. Wildlings was twofold. They were cursed to kill anyone they fell in love with and to live exclusively on human hearts. How sustainable is that?
Not at all. Exclusively hearts in particular is
exclusively on human hearts. It specifies.
Because, like, if you wanted to just make them all cannibals, like, okay. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Having a group called Wildlings and making them all cannibals is kind of problematic. Because,
it gets worse. Trust me, that shit gets worse. Continue, though. Boy. Continue.
The cannibal savage living in the wild trope is very much a product of colonialism. There's a lot to unpack there, but I do not think this book is worth unpacking post-colonial tropes over.
I don't
Just
think
know
so
that they
either.
exist.
I don't think so either. It gets 100% worse, because I thought the same thing. Okay, so let's think about it. So these wildlings, they live in their little wildling realm, and they have to subside exclusively on human hearts.
You're saying human like Dracula in Castlevania.
Human!
I was called here by humans.
I'm sorry. It's just because, again, like, it always specifically says human hearts, not pig hearts, like, not boar, not deer. What the
like, I don't want to get cinema sins about it, but this is just genuinely something like, do they not realize that the base of, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to walk this back a few moments.
Yes, go ahead.
Is this a quote-unquote civilized realm? Like, do they have infrastructure?
No. They're literally referred to as savages.
No, but, like, even so, though, do they have, like, villages
so here's
or anything?
The thing. I'm not entirely sure, because they have a ruler who lives in a palace and has a castle, but literally, like, a few sentences later, she's talking about how, like, so many of her people don't even have clothes on. Like, they don't, like... I genuinely cannot tell you, because...
Where does this writer think a castle comes from? Like, do they just grow it out of the ground? Or, like... Because you need infrastructure to support a castle. And a big part of that's going to be farming. And if you only eat human hearts, there are some really yucky implications about the only way you could possibly farm for your only source of sustenance.
That's... Okay, yeah, good. That's the kind of content the commentary I was looking for is, like... Okay, let's actually think about the world that you're implying here, right? Like,
society operates based on a lot of things, but at the very, very base of that all is keeping people alive, because even the worst leaders, the most tyrannical leaders, still need subjects. Even those worst leaders need to keep themselves alive. And what's one of those things people need to live? Food. If you can only eat one very specific thing that is not in abundance, you need to address how your people are alive. Because if they're all just constantly killing each other, there's no society, there's no infrastructure, there's nothing.
Yeah, and from what I can see, there is nothing, but again, it just... If there's nothing, there's no reason why there should be a ruler, you know? There's no reason why there should be a princess. That makes no sense.
You could play with something like that in a story that was interested in the messed up implications, but I feel like this is just a princess wealth fantasy with really poorly thought out trappings.
I agree, because again, we only see a little bit of the Wildling realm before she has to go to the titular LightLark to participate in the not Hunger Games, which we're gonna get to that too.
I just finished forgiving the original Hunger Games for its world building failures. I don't need to see it get bootlegged. This is hurting my soul.
Okay, so another passage that the writer writes is, thousands of wildling men and women have been killed off since love became forbidden and reckless and fewer children were born. And my note was all caps, do you understand the ramifications of this?
I don't think they understand the ramifications. because wait, so love has been outlawed.
Because remember, they're cursed, so it's not just the hearts thing, which I know we've been kind of harping on. Harping.
Yeah, but I kind of think those go hand in hand. Because if you're going to kill everyone you love, that seems like, I don't know, that seems like a pretty easy way to get the source of hearts going for at least an individual to eat. Do they just hate people and kill them instead?
I don't.
Because how are these people eating? I feel like that is one of the most basic questions any world builder has to ask.
Yeah, that's
how
exactly.
How are these people eating?
Like, how are they eating? Mm-hmm. Correct. I don't know.
Because I'm trying to think of, like, the weirdest, most two-dimensional, villainous fictional societies, And it's like, I don't want to say the orcs from Lord of the Rings are, like, bad world building, obviously, because, they're not. I mean, they're objectively unfinished. Tolkien died before he finished them. We know how they ate, and it's because, cool little thing about volcanoes. They fertilize soil. So Tolkien was like, oh yeah, Mount Doom, big volcano, fertile region nearby, inland sea nearby. The orcs have a shit ton of slaves farming food for them. Fucked up? Yeah. Does it explain how they eat? Yes. So if you can explain...
sense.
If you can explain how the most stock evil marauders are feeding themselves, then you can explain how these dunderheads are feeding themselves.
Yeah, because there's no explanation. Even if I think I would have accepted even a lazy explanation, like we frequently call like our weakest warriors and they're the ones who are eaten, which is stupid.
They realize how small a human heart is, like, in comparison to the caloric intake a person needs, because I understand science doesn't have to apply here, but one heart is gonna feed one person for one meal unless you really, really suspend your disbelief.
I think,
and
I can't remember if that's true. I have to read more.
Because
but
quite
I think,
honestly,
go ahead.
The only explanation for how these people are feeding themselves are if they are frequently raiding every other group of humans in this world to massacre them en masse for hearts. Is this something that's ever hinted at? That there's some endless war for heart gaining?
Well, the thing is like, no, I think the implication is they're too savage and primitive to go to war with the other realms.
Then how are they getting all those hearts, and how have they not all killed themselves in a paroxysm of cannibalistic violence? That's
what I'm asking. Like, that is exactly what I'm asking. How have they not just all killed themselves? Especially with this whole thing. Cricket. Especially like love is forbidden. So then how are children born? And then it's just... Make it make sense, Alex Astor. Make it make sense.
You don't have to be in love to do that, I guess,
I guess, but it's also just... whatever.
Everyone's just having, like, teenage trysts, I guess. That's the only way children are born.
I guess so. So,
the implications are somehow worse.
The implications are definitely somehow worse. Because, again, the whole point that I'm trying to make with, like, world building is, like, you need to think about it before I think about it, before we think about it, because then we're going to have discussions like this, and it's going to really come out how you didn't think about your world.
Yeah, cow tools and its consequences.
Okay. So, it turns out wildlings have nature powers. Not beating the savage allegations, which is horrible, but it says here wildlings have been able to grow entire forests with half a thought before they were cursed. And I'm like, that's great. That's not bad power scaling at all.
I mean, wait, so did they only have this power before they started having... So it says here,
okay, so... And this is me, like, figuring... Okay, so because... somewhat of a good thing, but also a bad thing, like, Alex Astor tends to, like, over-explain a little bit. Over-explain the same thing, but not the thing that we're actually looking for. So, okay, so all of the realms get their, like... all of the realms have their people, and their people get powers... But their powers are based on how much the ruler, like, kind of gives them, like, gives the land their own power. But the thing is so 500 years ago, all of these realms were cursed to have their own little unique curses. And then, like, so 500 years ago is when they started eating human hearts. I guess, which is, again, like, at this point, y'all should be dead. Y'all should be dead. So apparently before they were cursed, all wildlings, so everybody that lived in that realm, the actual quote says, wildlings had been able to grow entire forests with half a thought, move mountains with a flick of their wrist. And the note there that I wrote was, it's a good thing they can't anymore. That sort of power scaling, it seems very out of whack. It seems like this author did, like, what this author kind of just went, hey, wouldn't this be cool? And then just kind of did not think about how that would affect the world.
Because, I mean, on one hand, you can say that's some metaphorical lost myth thing. On the other hand, a lot of fantasy authors have a really bad habit of having no separating line between myth and history. When, like, sure, yeah, okay, your setting can have gods and magic be real and whatnot. But, like, I don't know. I personally think a setting that's allowed to have its own mythology that may or may not be true is a lot more textured. But anyhow, something like this can exist in the realm of mythology. If you need it to exist in a literal historical sense, then, like, look at how wars are fought. Terrain is everything. If these people can literally just control terrain with, quote-unquote, half a thought, implying this isn't some incredibly difficult skill to master,
they should be ruling the rest of the world, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, pretty much. Especially, like, look, if they're, like, okay, like, if this is, like, a bunch of islands, like I'm being led to believe, and they have control over all nature, including mountains, why not just bridge the islands? You know, pretty easy way to make a route to get more land.
And more hearts, because you kind of need them later, apparently.
I guess so.
Anyway, okay, so then it says here, wildling power, so now this is current timeline. Wildling powers varied in their mastery of nature, but they often included affinity with animals, which I'm like, okay, that's fine, cool. Y'all are rangers, I guess, rangers and druids. And then, so now we're going to this thing where, like, the main character, her name is Isla, I think, Isla. It's Isla, but there's debate over whether it's Isla or Isla. Anyway,
we'll have to find a real master at that topic to find us an answer.
She's
very silly.
Yeah, right. It's this time for the Centennial, which is like their Hunger Games, and I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense. I will get to that. So she's gonna go to the Centennial, and so she's being kind of paraded out, like, you know, oh, and like all the wildlings are like, yay, our ruler princess. Like, I don't like this, like, insistence on, like, calling them rulers, but whatever. That's just neither here nor there. And in describing, like, the wildlings, so it says some wildlings wore dresses made from bits of fabric woven through with leaves and vines. Some wore nothing at all except for the swords draped down their backs. Some had clearly just fed, their lips stained deep red. And that's just not good implications.
Yeah, it's a little yucky. Also, you know what the real most horrifying part is? Why are their swords on their backs? You're supposed to keep your sword at your waist.
Actually, can you explain that? Because I didn't really know that.
You keep your sword at your waist because it's a lot easier to draw that way. You're not pulling it over your head.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, just because, you know, Link does it from Legend of Zelda, so I didn't know.
He is a video game character.
I don't know. I'm just saying I've seen it. Sword. Okay, but on the waist.
Even Witcher, like, characters in the books will point out Geralt is a weirdo who has swords on his back like they're a quiver instead of at his waist. Because that's what happens when an author thinks about a trope that isn't realistic and goes, I want to use it anyway. They think through and they come up with a reason for it. And yeah, it's a little better than just saying, fuck it, we roll with it.
Also, I would probably argue that with Geralt, like, it might be easier on his back because he's carrying two swords as opposed to one. I mean, I guess you could carry, like, one on each waist, but...
I mean, I can't recall the precise reason Witchers do it on their back, but I know there is one.
But again, the point that we're trying to make here is that somebody actually thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone thought about it. Anyway, the note that I wrote here was, I'm getting Savages vibes from this, and it's not thought out. It seems disparaging that Isla has these pretty dresses when her people are naked and killing each other.
It seems like an awful lot of unexamined privilege that the character is not going to be treated as malicious for.
Not at all. Just as, like, a fun little tidbit, obviously, like... this sort of term just gets thrown around a lot, but people are kind of convinced that like Alex Astor is like an industry plant. Just like a privileged industry. I just want to point that out. I don't know. Like, obviously, like, I'm not like, oh, she's a fucking industry plant. But anyway. All right. We're gonna continue. I'm gonna skip everything about her meeting the male love interest because I kind of just hate it. But I really do just kind of hate it.
I too hate male love interests.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So this is something this seems weird to me. So as I mentioned, so every 100 years, there is this. So the island of LightLark, for the most part of a century, is like walled off by some storm. Which, I'll be honest, that seems kind of cool. It's walled off by a storm. I'm like, I can dig that because I wanna share the points that I do dig about this. To be fair, I do dig that part. And then every 100 years, that storm stops. So that way it allows the rulers from the all the 6 realms to come onto LightLark and to participate in the Centennial. So it says here, every 100 years since the curses had been cast, the island of LightLark appeared for just 100 days, freed from its impassable storm. Rulers of each realm were invited to journey from the new lands they had settled after fleeing LightLark to try to break the curses binding each of their powers and the island itself. Every realm, except for Nightshade, Nightshades had the power to spin curses, making them prime suspects for having created them in the first place, so they denied it. That just seems weird to me. That just seems odd. That just seems odd. I'm sorry. Just the fact that, like, okay, the big thing about this book is that everyone's cursed. And then you're gonna let one realm just keep the ability to curse people. Just seems odd to me. Anyway, apparently the love interest and someone else are 500 years old, while the main character is like 20, in her 20s, I'm assuming, or 18. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't care to remember.
Boy.
I don't know why this is a thing, but it is. And just to kind of I should say everyone is kind of racist towards the girl because she's a wildling from the beginning.
Are wildlings coded as people of color?
I totally believe so because the Isla, the ruler, she's kind of Latina coded because the author is Latina coded. No, not coded. Sorry, the author's Latina. The authors have Latina. And then Isla is
God,
like,
I'm so non-binary coded.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So Isla is kind of Latina coded because she is kind of seen as like the stereotype of the Latina of like she's supposed to be a seductress, she's supposed to be exotic, which my plans for like a future book, like you can play with that and make a good book, But I don't think that's what's happening here. I think she's just... But yeah, no, she is definitely, like, a person of color coded, and as are the wildlings. But remember, this is literally what they say. The rest of the realms like to view wildlings as savages. That is a direct quote. So that is... It's giving
cool
it's giving colonialism, guys. It's giving such colonialism.
It's giving unexamined colonial tropes, really. Because it doesn't seem like the wildlings are being colonized, and it in fact also seems like every notion of them being quote-unquote savages is justified in the text by proving every stereotype true.
Yeah, if it's a thing where someone's like, we need to take over the wildlings so they stop killing each other, I'm calling it now. I feel like it's gonna happen.
Can someone take over my apartment so I have to stop hearing about this book?
Okay. All right. So, I'm gonna. There's some other stuff that I don't care sharing with you. Just that it doesn't make any sense. Because so the whole point of this Centennial is that someone wins the Centennial, then their curse is broken. But I am honestly very confused because it's not been made clear if only that curse is broken or if all the curses are broken, in which case, then what's the point of the competition? Like, that really has not been made clear.
I mean, I guess that's just going to be honestly something you should probably revisit after finishing the damn book.
True. Okay. Oh, and there's like a bit where she's like singing like really well, and it's like, oh yeah, because I'm a temptress. I'm like, the fuck have you ever done?
Just unironically.
Singing was a wildling thing, a temptress thing, just like their sisters, the Sirens of the Sea. That's the direct quote. Speaking of internalized misogyny, it's so great because there's a character that shows up that like I freaking like, which I actually like her. Her name is Cleo, and like as soon as she shows up, like the text is so coded, be like, oh look at this, she's such a bitch, she's so mean, she's just like the worst, she's like a preppy girl, and I'm like, I like her.
I saw preps and I put my middle
finger up at
them.
Yeah, it was very much that. Okay, and then, here are the rules of the Centennial, which I think are so stupid. For the first rule is, like, one of the 6 rulers has to die for the curses to be erratic. Okay, for the curse says, see, because it says curse says as opposed to be, like, the curse of, like, the one person who... For the curses to be eradicated, one of the 6 rulers had to die, and I'm like, that's it? Like, that's so fucking easy. Why don't you just break into somebody's room with your star stick and off them and escape? Like, just...
Yeah, okay, yeah, this is a point where teleportation becomes a serious problem. Because if you care about the curses, and it's as easy as kill the rulers... Like, are these rulers good people by any regards?
I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, she already made, like, Cleo, is like, oh, Cleo's the villain, Cleo's a bitch, so it's like, okay, well, if that's the... Just sneak into Cleo's room and kill her!
I mean, does the main character have any problem with killing people? Or...
No, she's been trained to kill people!
But has she actually done it yet? Or...
I don't think so. Which, you know, you could argue, you could make that point where it's like, oh, maybe she's wary about taking somebody's life, which is like, okay,
yeah,
sure, I guess.
Yeah, could make some qualms thing, but I don't know. I feel like if these rulers, if it's really just get rid of these rulers and the entire world is free,
and it's not even rulers, it's one. One of them has to die. Not even all of them.
I mean, yeah, just find the one that's being the biggest dick and... You know, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's what I'm trying to say. That's just like what? Just one? Like, like I would understand if it was like all of them except for you, like as Hunger Games, right? Like you'd like that's harder to do.
This sounds like that could have been the intent, but this was just not edited, or again, not thought out.
Not thought out. That's what I like to. That's what I probably think is. Yeah, and it's just like, some of these curses do suck. Well, some of these curses are so disproportionate to the others. Like, oh no, this is a great one. Here we go. So, the Moonling's curse meant, this is a direct quote, Moonling's curse meant that every full moon, the sea claimed dozens of lives from their realm, drowning anyone who found themselves too close to the coast. And I'm just like, that's such an easy curse to navigate!
Just do not go to the beach.
Like... Put a fucking wall around the kingdom, like on the coast, and nobody goes to the ocean. It's that easy.
Yeah, like, and you could write around that by saying like the rest of the kingdom is barren and they need the sea to survive.
Which, but hey, that's interesting, you know.
Like that.
That's interesting because that means you actually thought about this, but. The fact that, like, apparently in the Moonling realm, people just like, oh, okay, it's like a full moon, I'm gonna go to the sea, and, like, just fucking drown.
I mean, I'd like to call that unrealistic, but given real life, you know...
I guess so.
Hey, if you wear this mask, it'll reduce your chances of getting this life-threatening illness. Don't tell me what to do! God. Beachgoers are just anti-vaxxers in this world, I
guess. Yeah, that's making it into the video. Alright, so as we asked earlier, it's like, why, if it's so easy, why doesn't just somebody die? And apparently, I guess the author did kind of think about that a little bit, but it's still done in a way that just makes me go, Okay, so here we go. It says here, the first centennial had been a bloodbath. All of the invited rulers set out to kill each other, and many of the islanders were caught in the crossfire. But the heads of the realm were too skilled and too ancient. The 100 days ended with all of them alive and the curses intact. It was decided that future centennials would have order. I'll be honest. I I'm skeptical of all the rulers surviving what is basically a six-way war.
Yeah,
I just what? If they're all trying to kill each other, 6 people trying to kill each other, and one of them just needs to die, and you're telling me they all survived.
Yeah, it's just... I get rulers often don't have the best interest of their people in mind, but the curses affect them too, right?
Yes, the curses affect everybody.
So, like, honestly, if a few of them just made a pact, let's just strike down one of these other guys, like turning it into a 3v1 or even like a 2v1 in one of these cases, seems like it would have been a pretty easy solution that the author should have definitely thought about.
Yeah, okay, and this is the part where this gets really great. So now they're explaining the rules. So the first rule, a ruler may not assassinate or attempt to assassinate another ruler until after the 50th day.
How long do these things last?
100 days, which I'm like...
Do they realize how long 100 days is?
I'm just like, so what? You're just sitting there for 50 days not doing anything? Like, what's the fucking point? Like I think I wrote 3 something. That's what I wrote.
Why are they...
So my note here is, but why? Why so long? So arbitrary. I mean, with Hunger Games, no one could kill each other until they entered the arena and the timer began. But that sort of, like waiting makes sense. It doesn't feel arbitrary.
Because it's televised.
Correct. And you're correct. It puts some sort of fairness at the beginning, but, like, waiting 50 days, almost 2 months, is like... okay, but what happens on the 50th day? Is there an arena, a formal start, even though they said the game had already begun? It just seems stupid. And then it says here, on the 25th day, they're going to be paired up.
Okay, so they've been doing these... Okay. Do the rulers get paired up? Are they part of this?
The rulers are the participants.
Then, okay, I'm so confused about the last thing. What do you mean all the rulers survived the last one?
Look... This is just a 6-person Hunger Games every single 100 years, and no one has died yet.
And who died in the first one? I thought, like, other people got killed in it.
They're servants, apparently, or islanders, other people who were not supposed to be part of the Centennial.
Okay.
I am losing brain cells reading this, too. Don't worry. Okay, and then this is the rule that, like, from a world-building perspective, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. This makes, like, no sense to me either. Like, this is just plain stupid. Okay. The third rule, to participate, no ruler can have an heir, so their death would successfully eliminate their familial line and break the curse. According to the prophecy, it would also mean the end of their realm forever. And I'm just like, I feel like if this were true, like this is so stupid, because it's like, okay, obviously no one has died yet, which is so stupid that nobody has died yet. Plus, again, sending heirless rulers to their deaths is such a bad practice for a kingdom. Like, no one in their right mind would ever agree to this, even to get rid of a curse. You know, the reason Hunger Games and, like, everyone says, like, oh, Hunger Games is a ripoff of Battle Royale, but, like, they both kind of had similar things to say. And the similar thing that they both said is that this happens because someone is oppressing another group, like, unfairly, right? So if you're going to do Hunger Games or Battle Royale, I don't care. Like, if you're going to do something like that, you need to have an idea of oppression, of tyranny, of, like, you need to kind of get into that, because that's the point.
I'm going to be honest, the more I learn about this story, the more I dislike it on a thematic level, even beyond all the bad world building, because it's like, oh, what if we did a Hunger Games style thing, but it was the rich kids getting killed? And
the reason Hunger Games and Battle Royale work is that the people who are being forced to participate in these death games are of an oppressed class of some sort, and the people who are oppressing them it's tyranny. It's on purpose.
Yeah, and, like, the reason the Hunger Games as a story exists on a meta level is because it's about the sensationalization of violence, whether that be war or, political violence here back home, or even just, the everyday hellscape, life living in certain underprivileged areas. All those forms of violence and suffering are put on TV next to each other with commercial breaks to make money, and rich people will watch them, maybe feel a little bad and go, we must count our blessings, and then not really do anything about it.
Yeah, what I wrote earlier is that the scary thing about the Hunger Games and Battle Royale is not that they happened, but the scary thing is that they're sponsored.
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
and I just feel like having it be like, oh, we gotta feel bad for these rich little twats instead just kind of kills the entire point of that narrative structure.
Exactly.
And also, the whole stake of the story is, oh, if this ruler dies, all their people just go blam. I feel like that just goes into a fantasy trope that I really hate that needs to be eradicated.
Okay.
Because it's a huge problem with, like, any sort of, like, regency or nobility themed fantasy, which is that commoners are pretty much treated as a non-factor and nobles and royals are the only ones who actually matter. And this is just kind of the apotheosis of that into literal non-critiqued part of the setting, where it's like, because again, literally the royals are all who matter.
I think that was actually that's the last highlight I have. So and again, so my last bit was going back to this idea of oppression. Who's oppressing these rulers and making them participate? Like, is it the curses that are... It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Anyway, I'm only 5 chapters in. So that's all I extrapolated from 5 chapters. So far, I think this is failing my world building expectations. But I think we got some really good insight as to, like, why exactly it's bad world building and, like, why like, you kind of need to read about this sort of thing. Look, we are the first ones to admit that world building's hard. It is very difficult. For one, it does require you to be well read. I don't think that's a controversial statement.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people who will cry about gatekeeping or something if you say you have to read to make good art. I mean, you have to read to make good art. Also,
if you're going to be a writer, I'm sorry, you have to read. That should not be a controversial statement. That's not even being gatekeepy. That's like, if you want to write, like, if you want to write well.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something a little more spicy here.
Okay, go ahead.
You can't just read fan fiction. You have to read actual original novels and learn how writers introduce original concepts that weren't derived from a work that already existed. Writing fanfic is a great way to cut your teeth on writing. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of great fanfic out there. Mm-hmm. But you have to be aware of how to create your own ideas, flesh out those own ideas, and to make them make sense in serving your narrative and having an actual consistent setting for it. Because you don't have to go to the Tolkien level. You don't. Like, full stop. And there's a lot of bad faith world building questions out there, you know? Like the whole, why don't they just fly the eagles to Mordor, you know? There's just nonsense like that. But when it comes to basic things like, how do these people eat? Why do the people who die when they go near the ocean not simply not go near the ocean? When it comes to questions that basic, that even a reader who isn't as eagle-eyed as me is going to be asking questions, you need the answers as a writer, and they need to be there in the text, and they need to make sense and not just be contrivances that pretty much just mean, oh, because I, the author, said so.
What I wrote earlier too, and what I'm mentioning in the intro of the video is, what I kind of think is like, well, what is good world building? I think is a really hard question to answer, but I kind of chalked it up to, it's kind of like graphic design. It's kind of like design. If you did your job correctly, no one would really notice that much. But if you messed up, then it is extremely noticeable. Where it's like, I'm not saying that good world building just goes under the radar, because obviously, you know, you and I, like, we can appreciate good world building, and like it if it's there, then we appreciate it. Like, you know, with The Witcher, with Dragon Age, with Tolkien, like, you know, it's there, we know it's good, and it's good primarily because we're not asking too many inane questions like this, you know. But if we're sitting here and we're reading a book and we're like, well, why why is it like this? And then it doesn't ever get answered and it ruins your immersion, then yes, that's going to be considered bad world building.
A good world should have you asking questions, but they should be ones of curiosity more than anything else, not why does the story not make sense. A great example of a world that makes you ask questions about how it works routinely is Disco Elysium, my favorite game of all time. Because you start that game as an amnesiac in a world that is very much not our own. So you are learning about it with the main character at all times, with even the fundamentals having to be brought back to your memory. And every other character takes those for granted. So you have this really unique experience of being a bit of a crazy person trying to navigate a world that, even to you, the real-life player, does not make any sense. But if you ask questions, stay curious, keep trying to, piece together who you were, where you are, you'll get answers to those questions. And they will make sense with their own internal logic.
Okay. I think that was really good, and that's probably a good place to wrap up this little tidbit here. Are there any last thoughts that you want to give out before I wrap this up?
If you want to write, read. And just read really good things. You don't have to, abide by, some elite classical canon. But, try to have a healthy, balanced diet in your books.
Yeah, I know. We're off to such a great start. So the rest of this is going to be a little off the cuff. I'm just going to read the notes that I have on my Kindle. And I'm going to skip the ones I went over with Luke. You already know how I feel about those. So a few things that I know I wrote down. I did find out eventually that when Alex Astor says realms, it's not necessarily different realms like that would think of, for example, Norse mythology, where they're all kind of they're all still on the Yggdrasil tree, but they're all kind of their own worlds essentially, and it's kind of difficult to get to one to the other. That's not what's happening here. They're just different continents and islands. I don't know why she calls them realms. I mean, that's fine. I don't think that's I don't think that's incorrect. But I did find it strange that wasn't specified early on. People kept saying that she never explained what the star stick looked like, and yeah, she doesn't. So I know that a lot of people have great ideas of what it looks like. Mine just probably looks like a cat wand. Okay, so I don't believe I talked about this with Luke, but in the second chapter is when Isla, I don't know, but whatever, is when she meets the love interest. Why did she name him Grimshaw? Oh my god. Okay. All right. And then he's and they're like, have we met before? And I'm gonna call it and say yes. The way this guy zeroes in on her is so... oh my god, it feels like author tractor beam to me. She literally, Alex Astor wrote this guy and she was like, okay, go. Go do the thing. Or the person. It doesn't feel natural. And he says, have we met before? And it's if we had, his eyes dipped for just a moment. It wouldn't have been just once. You can only meet one. I fucking hate him. I hate him already. Okay, so I wrote a lot of notes about the curses, and yeah, definitely the weird power scaling. A lot of these curses are just worse than others, and I already went into how stupid some of these were, so I'm just gonna continue. And then I love this line in the commentary. She says, though the rest of the realms like to view wildlings as savages, you made them savages. You like to view the wildling. You're the one that is forcing them to eat human hearts. You're the one that is not giving them food, You're the one that's not giving them proper food. You're the one that's not giving them clothes. You're the one that literally made them savages as the author. If you didn't want people to look at them that way, you should have written them better. So this is bullshit at the end of the day. And yeah, Alex Astor does this thing where she says these buzzwords oh, the king is an origin. And I'm like, well, what's an origin? And then she's like, I'll explain later. And I guess she does eventually explain it later, but she's also explaining a bunch of other stuff in between, so you just kind of forget. Oh yeah, I love this. So when so like in the beginning, Isla and Celeste pretend that they don't know each other, and then afterwards they like meet up and they're like, oh my god, we fooled them. And this is the commentary. They jumped in a tiny circle, embracing and laughing so hard Isla kicked the door closed to keep it from echoing down the hall. Okay, so it's like, okay, they're doing their little hops and then she closes the door, like, okay. But it's stupid. It's stupid. It's like, girl, I love my besties too, but even we don't do that. So now that I've read more, because I wrote this on page 19, and I understand a little bit more of what's going on in the Centennial, but the fact that it took so long, it took me like until the end of the book-ish to kind of get it. And the fact that, like, you know, you're asking these questions early on and you don't know whether or not they're going to be answered, like, that's just not good. Because I asked right here, it's like, so it says here, they both desperately needed to break the curses this Centennial. And I said, I'm confused. If someone wins, only their curses are broken? I thought it broke all of the curses. But if that's true, then what's the point of competing if they all technically win in the end? And so the way the Centennial works, now that I have, is really weird to me. I'm going to get into it a little bit more, but the way Alex Astor writes it is like, there's really high stakes, but then not really. But then there's really high stakes, and then not really. It's really conflicting, and because of the way it's written, like, and I remember how I talked about the Hunger Games plot where, you know, so the stakes in the Hunger Games plot are much smaller, I would say. It's just like, you know, in the first book, like, the stakes is Katniss's life, right? Like, that's, and then it becomes eventually like hers and Peeta's life. But that is much easier to root for, especially because, again, like, in the Hunger Games, everybody needs to die. In LightLark, as far as I can tell, only one ruler needs to die. But because that ruler is connected to their realm, and because their realm is, like, everybody in there, it's genocide. Like, they kill one ruler, but then they effectively kill off a whole entire realm. But the problem with that is like, yes, that's technically higher stakes, but we don't spend any time in any of the other realms. We don't spend enough time with any of the other rulers. So at the end, it's just a statistic. Do you understand? The fact that, I don't know, millions or hundreds of thousands, don't really know, because we don't know anything about their society. The fact that, like, you know, these are the people that are going to die. We are only concerned about the rulers and how they're going about it. It is, as Luke said, it's very much just that. It's just a bad trope that I think we need to retire. Here, how do I say this? I do think we need to retire this bad trope of, like, oh, well, you know, we care more about the ruler than we do about everybody else. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the ruler is important, obviously, but they shouldn't be the end-all, be-all of the kingdom. After all, their kingdom is all their subjects. So even if, like, the king dies, like, I don't think their subjects should suffer for that too. You know, they're already suffering enough. So I agree, it's a bad trope. I don't think we should do it anymore. But yeah, so I don't like the Centennial. So Isla is supposed to be trained as a seductress, right? And so she says here in page 20, chapter 3, singing was a wildling thing, a temptress thing, just like their sisters, the sirens of the sea. I'm like, okay, are there sirens in this book? I don't remember any. But it's just like, I just have beef with this. I just have beef. I don't know. It's because I'm also a singer. I don't know. I kind of just want to stab myself every time Isla sings. Oh my god. And it's like, okay. There's so much conflicting information here. For example, Isla's supposed to be this, like, highly trained warrior. Like, she's supposed to be, I mean, trained in what? I don't know. But I just know that, like, they did this thing where, like, they, like, hung her, like, and she was doing this, like, a pull-up bar, like, on a tree 50 feet in the air, and she had to stay there for, like, 5 hours. And so it's just like, you know, if you could do that, there's no reason you should be falling off a balcony. Oh yeah, I hate this. Grim looked amused, eyeing her every step in a way that made her flush, mortified. That's not sexy. Okay, so it says here, chapter 5, that day she chose a dress, the pink of tulips, with a plunging back and a fabric that clung to her like it was wet. It was tradition to wear the color of one's power source. Starlings wore silver, sunlings wore gold, skylings wore light blue, nightshings wore black, and moonlings wore white. I don't know. Because nature is multicolored, Because nature was multicolored, Isla was not bound to one shade as long as she did not infringe upon anyone else's. I hate that they have clothing rules. I mean, I won't get into like the history of dyes and like how like affordable one color is to the other, but it's like, I don't care about that right now. What I do care about is that like she's like, I get every other color. Y'all got your colors, I get every other color because I'm special. It just feels so author serving. I just don't like it, but it's just like, look at my special little girl. She gets to wear whatever she wants. Because I said so. Every ruler was gifted a custom wardrobe. Why? Like, they don't need to market themselves Hunger Games style. It's not needed. It's just blatant, like, wish fulfillment. Nightshades could not feel the energy and calm of the night. What does this mean? What does this mean? I don't know. What did he want? A knowing grin overtook Grimm's sharply cut face as he studied her right back. His black hair was smoothed down his pale forehead, ink across a page. Deciding if I'm a villain? Oh, I love this bit. Heart Eater, can you have chocolate? Isla tried to keep the hunger off her face. I can eat my weight in it. Aren't you trying to keep up the ruse that you have your wildling curse and powers, but then you're just like, oh, chocolate's okay? Because I mean, it's a curse. The curse. Look, Luke and I already went over the whole entire thing of why it's so unsustainable to subside entirely on hearts, and if that's how you're going to choose to wreck your society, then you can't just say, oh, but I can have chocolate. Also, speaking of her chocolate, I have a bit of a rant here. Page 38. She had only tasted chocolate on her forays to Skyling villages on their new land. Okay. All right, Alex Astor, do you know where chocolate comes from? Chocolate was only found in the Americas, specifically the tropical rainforest climates of like South America and Central America. Same thing with sugarcane and tobacco. So, not found in Europe at all. So if you're using the wildling realm as like savage land, using tropes that have been enforced by colonization, they would be the ones to have chocolate, not anywhere else. Chocolate itself is a symbol of colonialism and thus another unexamined example of it. Way to go, Alex Astor! I love what I wrote here. It just says, and Isla was left alone in the market, wondering why the ruler of Nightshade was helping her. He wants to fuck you, you absolute idiot. Okay, so then we stopped there. She's like, I don't know what he wants from me. And then chapter 6 is, or page 45, the first step in Tara and Poppy's elaborate plan was to seduce the king. And I'm like, okay. In chapter 7, they start the duels, and these are the demonstrations, and apparently who wins the most demonstrations or whatever can pick teams later, which again is dumb as fuck. So I know Alex Astor is taking this from the Hunger Games. So the point of the demonstrations in the Hunger Games is to earn sponsors, is to basically say, hey, I can keep myself alive. And there is that whole bit with Katniss, because she was from District 12. I'm so sorry, it's been a while since I read the books. She's from one of the most underprivileged districts, and thus they don't really pay attention to her demonstration at all, and basically telling her, oh, we think she's gonna die within the first round or so. And it's her chance of getting some of that attention back, like getting some control of the room. Like it's a very good scene. Again, like we're going back to this idea. It's like, okay, Alex Astor said I wanted to write a Hunger Games thing. Okay, cool, that's fine. No one is oppressed here. They're all rulers. I mean, they're all being treated like royalty, literally. Like, I guess you could say the oppressor is the person that put the curse on them in the first place, but they are an unseen force at this point. I mean, the curses are like abstract and arbitrary at this point as well. It doesn't work because there's no clear oppressor here that's forcing them to do these things. And therefore, what is the point of these demonstrations? There is none. So Grimm is still doing this thing where he's like tractor beaming onto her, like I said. And the note here that I wrote was, God, I just know that there isn't a good reason why he's been doing this. He has just got the designated love interest tunnel vision. Like, supposedly this is the first time they've met. So I share Isla's confusion as to why he's so fixated on her. I mean, but me as the reader can guess that he probably knows her and has been waiting for her. But if that's true, then that means we don't get to see the journey he went on to fall for her, you know? Like, I get the appeal of the trope. I mean, Howl's Moving Castle does it, but Howl's Moving Castle does it in a way where when Sophie goes back and she tells, you know, Howl to find her in the future, he doesn't know her at all. Like, he has been searching for her, but he doesn't know her at all. So when they first meet, and, you know, in town, and then they start actually, you know, like, living together, like, then they start actually getting to know each other. But we don't miss any part of Howl falling in love with Sophie. We get to witness all of it. And likewise, we get to see Sophie fall in love with Howl. Okay, so here's the thing I was talking about earlier with he didn't know that when Isla was 12, Tara had left her hanging onto the branch of a tree 50 feet above the ground for 5 hours. I said, I feel like this is physically impossible. Your arms would give out in fatigue well before 5 hours. So, like, what's the point to build arm strength? I mean, that's not going to build muscle or endurance. That's just do weight training. Also, if you're like hanging from a branch and you're going to hang for 5, just scoot off. Just do this. By the 3rd hour, she was screaming. By the 4th, her voice gave out. By the 5th, one of her shoulders had popped out of its socket. No. That requires blunt force. Writers, Googling injuries is a Time Ultra edition, and it takes seconds, maybe minutes to do. Don't be the writer that writes stupid things like this. So chapter 8 is about Celeste, or, you know, has a bit more about Celeste. So it says here, they were not enemies, they were friends, sisters. The author is doing a lot of telling here. She's telling us that Celeste is the best one and that they're super close, like sisters, when really she should be showing that bond through banter and familiarity. So far, it's just Celeste going, oh, Isla, don't do that. Oh, Isla, do this. Isla, do that. And it's very one-sided. I mean, the fact that Alex Astor is so eager to shove, oh my god, they're such good friends, like, down our throats sets off a red flag that something isn't right with Celeste. I mean, I'd like to think of telling a story like you're trying to tell the longest lie ever. Like, you're on the witness stand and then the lawyer is like, okay, well, what happened, right? You want to make your story as believable as possible. The lawyer and the jury are more likely to believe your story if you show them things or give them things to visualize, rather than just saying the thing, right? Like, for example, instead of saying, oh my gosh, he loved her so much, I can't believe this happened. Like, that doesn't really convince people. But if you say, he brought her flowers, like, every morning, and he made sure to take out the marigolds because he knew that she hated marigolds. He would also brew her coffee, and he knew exactly how she liked it. Like, see, those are irrefutable actions. Those are examples. So that's how people start to believe these things, right? So I did figure out later that wildlings only need a heart or 2 a month, which, again, that's much better than needing like 3 or 6 a day, but it's still dumb. She's going on about like, I'm powerless, right? So the power of the realm comes from the ruler, right? That's why if the ruler dies without an heir, the entire realm dies. So how is she still... So how is the wildling realm still alive if she doesn't have any powers? Maybe they should just kill her. Oh yeah. I made this joke. So she was like, and then you know, she's trying so hard to keep her secret. And then I'm just like, oh my god, like at this point, like no one is suspicious that she couldn't use magic. No one. And then she has this quip where she's like, I'm always armed. I'm like, yeah, it's called plot armor. So she goes to, I think she goes into the town and she asks for secrets, and she meets this person, Juniper, and they're like, okay, a secret for a secret. And then, so the secret that she gives is, I let the king win during the first demonstration. I could have bested him, but didn't. I'm like, that doesn't fucking count. Look, when someone's asking you for a secret, they're asking for a secret that can mess things up. Like, they're asking for a secret that, like, if this got out, like, it could wreck things, you know? You can't, and if it's so easy to say, and if it's so easy, and it's like, it's not a secret. I was just like, okay, sure, you could have won. But it's like, but also that's opinion. That's a matter of opinion, right? Like, it's, nobody can prove that unless you fight again. Also, okay, so another point about the demonstrations. There's no point. Like, my God, if you're trying to win Battle Royale or, you know, the Hunger Games, the best thing for you to do is not show your opponents what you're capable of. Like, you want to show your entire deck before the killing starts. Talk about a great way to let people gauge your weaknesses. Okay, so this entire book, she wants us to hate Cleo. I love Cleo. She's like the only one I like. She was like, so there's this like trial, this stupid trial of fear, right? And Cleo clears it in like 2 minutes or something like that. Like, she's just like, I'm done. And she's such a bitch, and she's just like, I love her. I want her to win. I want her to get out of this book because it's so much worse than she is. And she's fearless, and I love her. And you know what? Cleo's the only one that's like actually playing to win here. I feel like everybody else is just like, ooh, intrigue, ooh, demonstrations, ooh, what? And then Isla's like, oh my God, what's this Grimm guy up to? Because Grimm's not in it to win it. He's not. He's just in it to fuck Isla. But Cleo is here to help her people. Like, she is here to win it. She doesn't care if she needs to kill somebody in another. She doesn't care if she wants to commit genocide to like help her realm. Like, I totally respect that. I respect that way more than everybody else. Oh God, and this is a Grimm line, I just know it. We are most famed for our thorough exploration of pleasure. Oh my God. Look, y'all, I love a horrible, flirtatious bad boy, but we need to establish vulnerability. Where is it? The way his lips had curled around the word pleasure. No. What was wrong with her? Isla, you literally been taking every opportunity to remind us that you are a temptress and a seductress, that you were trained. If this was true, then 1, you should be able to clock these signs that he's totally into you and trying to seduce you. Or 2, deflect in various ways, because why are you trying to act so like ingenue and virginal about this when you're the one insisting to us, oh, I'm a seductress, I've been trained for this, I'm gonna seduce the king because that's what my caretakers told me to do. And it's just like, but then you have like no idea what to do with Grimm. Like, no! You're a What's the truth? And again, she keeps like hemming and hawing, but she's like, I don't know why he's helping me. He has no reason to help me. Stop it. Stop acting so innocent to what he's trying to do, because I'm not buying it. Either you need to admit that you are not a good seductress, which is fine. That's a plot point we could take of. It's like, you were trained to do this thing, but you suck at it. That's okay. We can roll with that. Or if you want to be, you know, actually good at this, then you need to make her act more mature in this situation. Like, choose. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Choose one. Either she's a seductress and she can handle a guy coming at her like this, or she's an ingenue. Like, I do hate that, like, it's either or, and there's not a lot of room for nuance, but you obviously, which one? I mean, and then it says here, it was foolish and dangerous, but Isla set off looking for the nightshade. And I'm like, well, why not seduce him too while you're at it? I mean, like, have him wrapped around your little finger. Come on, give me some femme fatale. I'm here for it. Because, I mean, you haven't actually tried to seduce your actual target, so. Then this next demonstration is like, well, what can you offer your realm? Right? And so then Cleo is like, I made ships, right? Like, I made ships, and everyone, and like, Isla's like, oh, for what? For war? And I'm like, a kingdom needs ships. It's so funny. I think Alex Astra is trying to paint Cleo as like the worst person ever, but she keeps making her, like, because Alex Astra is so bad at world building, she keeps making Cleo like undoubtedly the best ruler. Cleo's the one who's like, I need ships for a reason, for you know, unifying the realms, for trade, for this, for exploration. It's like, those are all good things, and those are all things a kingdom needs. So she arguably has the best one. Yeah. And then Grimm's like, my realm has nothing productive to offer you. Okay, so we're going to talk about 2 things. We're going to talk about world building, and we're going to talk about bad boys. So the first little bit about world building is, why do people settle in a certain place? Well, people settle in a certain place because there is a resource there that they need, whether that is, you know, mines, whether that is water, whether that is crop, this or that. Like, people settle in a place because there is something nearby that is valuable. So Like, Nightshade should have something valuable because they are a civilization, you know? It's just like, again, like kind of going back to the wildling thing. It's like, okay, well, people had to settle there for a reason too. Maybe it was a chocolate. Who knows? All right, so that's the little world building thing. Let's talk about the bad boy thing. Okay, girlies, let's talk. The reason we like bad boys is because we like to uncover their past traumas, okay? We need to know why they are the way they are. That's how we sympathize instead of rolling our eyes. So, like, with my trifecta of elven bisexuals, we find out relatively early on, like, why they are the way that they are. I mean, take Astarion and take Fenris. Like, the reason they are the way they are is because they were slaves, both for a different amount of times and both for different people. Like the first time Astarion goes out and he's like, oh my god, I can stand in the sun. I'm free. I don't have to listen to his commands anymore. I can do whatever I want. Like, his hedonism then makes a lot of sense. With Fenris, his trauma manifests just more of like brooding and how distrustful he is of mages, and how particularly sour he can be, and how he's just like not really a nice person. But we understand this very early on. I don't think we've understood why Grim is the way that he is, Grimdark. I mean, I know that he was in a war. He was like this elite warrior, but it's like that doesn't tell me anything. You could have at least written some sort of, there's a story. There's a story where he was like the sole survivor of this battle, and he killed all these people, but then lost somebody. Like, see, like that's 2 seconds to do that, but obviously that wasn't done. So Grim is just kind of emo, edgy for like no reason. We don't really understand it yet, if there is ever going to be an explanation. Anyway, yeah. So Grim definitely wants to fuck Isla, and I just. He keeps calling her Heart Eater, which I'm just like, you know that she doesn't eat hearts. You bought her chocolate. And it says, Cleo was building an army. Why? I like how this is supposed to be, again, trying to paint Cleo as evil. I hate to tell you this, Alex Astor, but kingdoms need armies. Like, they need people to guard the people that are in there. I'm sorry if that's controversial. I mean, Cleo is 100% the most competent ruler in this book. I mean, she's here to win. She's building ships and an army, and she's got it. I hate that Alex Astor is like, she's just the worst. I'm like, for trying to protect her people? No. Like, I'm telling you, Cleo's the best character so far because I understand that she's a bitch, and that's okay. But I love the fact that she's a bitch and she's willing to do whatever she wants to protect her people. That is awesome! And I hate that she's being painted as this villain. It's just so simple-minded. So Alex Astor does this thing where she has to keep reminding us the rules of the Centennial because, once again, they don't make sense. I think she anticipated us, the reader, being like, well, why don't they just do this? Or why don't they just do this? So she keeps explaining the rules over and over again, just like, hey, reminder, these are the rules. And it's like, your rules suck. Like, okay, whoever won this one would decide the matches the rulers would break into. The decision was important. Because of the first rule, a ruler could not kill the person they were joined with. The choice would force alliances, guide their search for the meaning of the rest of the prophecy, shape the rest of the Centennial, perhaps even decide who'd be targeted and killed. No. This is chapter 23, and we start getting into this thing where, like, LightLark has a heart or something like that. There's, like, a heart of the island, and, like, Oro's explaining, like, I'm not the heart, I'm just the conduit, but there is an actual heart. Oh, and I love this. She's like, oh, so it has an actual heart? Yes, he said, but it doesn't look like the type you eat. Shut up. Anyway, I think Alex Astor is suffering from didn't think this through when she wrote this, because there is this pattern that I went through like early in my writing career where basically you start with one concept, explain that, then you get an idea that contradicts it. So instead of axing either of them or going for a simple solution, you try to marry the two ideas with a convoluted explanation. And because it's convoluted, you mistake its sloppiness for cleverness, because only the most intelligent of readers will actually understand what you're trying to say, when really, I mean, I think the mark of a good writer is like if your plot is not like simple, but if it's like if the explanations are simple and like no one's asking questions until like the end of the book, just like, oh, and then I think you've done your job. I wrote here Wild Owl sounds like a theme park. Describing Cleo, she did have different relationships with both men and women before she came into power. My bisexual queen. I love her. I'm sorry. Alex Astor keeps making me love her. All of our realms are connected. You can't begin to understand the consequences of losing one of them. Yeah, Alex Astor, listen to your own writing. So I'll be honest. So that was chapter like 26. And after 26 chapters, which I don't think... Let me look. So after 26 chapters, which was a little bit less than half, 44% of the book, I was just like, this is bad. Like, I don't want to continue reading this. I just wrote less notes and I kind of skimmed through. But what I do want to do, because it's kind of my brand here, I do want to talk about the sex scene. And I haven't read it yet. I decided to leave it all for you as a live reaction. Isn't this exciting? Okay, so before I get into it, what do I consider a good sex scene? Well, it should be a good scene first, and then it should be sexy. So what I mean by that is typically when I read not great erotica, the characters are almost not important. Like, what's more important is about, like, the smut, which is, like, that's fine if that's what you want to read. But for me, good smut should show things about both characters or more, whoever is involved. It should show things about them that, like, you know, they should be very in character. They should, they still have their own goals. They still have their own wants and needs. And we need to consider those when we're writing smut. Like, you can't just, like, write a good sex scene, put your characters' names in, and, like, let it be good. A good sex scene is written when you've written the two characters well, when their chemistry works well, when the things that they're doing feel in character. Now, that might lead to, like, a little bit of awkwardness, and that's okay. To me, that's a little endearing to see, you know, if you're writing two characters who, you know, this is their first time and it just goes great, I don't find that really believable. But if they're fumbling a little bit, if they're, like, maybe over asking each other, hey, is this fine? Like, I would believe that, and I would find that endearing, and I would like that scene even more. So, knowing what I know about Isla and Grimm, I mean, again, Grimm has not really shown any vulnerability now. He's telling her, he's like, oh, I crave you, like, all the time. Late at night, I ache for you all the time, he said, face truly looking tortured, as if he had waited a long while to say those words, as if it had been a curse. And I'm like, that's not essentially vulnerability. Vulnerability is, like, you know, letting people into your secrets, letting people know the things about you that you would just, like, die if they knew these things about you, or showing just, like, the weak part of you. This is not a weakness, or at least this doesn't feel weak to me. So there's still no vulnerability here. There's a chance, but I don't think it's gonna happen. And Isla, she's supposed to be this seductress, so I'm expecting her to take maybe a little bit of charge, show us the seductress side of her that you've been telling us. Again, telling versus showing. So, like, show us that she knows what she's doing. All right, let's go. Okay, see, so this is what I mean. Like, okay, so she's looking at a scar that's, like, on his chest, but I think she's, like, more distracted by the fact that he's got, like, you know, like, 8 abs. And she's like, well, what is this from? And just someone trying to kill me, Heart Eater. Right now, you're the one that's killing me. And it's like, that could have been a chance. That could have been a chance, but okay. It's not eye-rolling like some of the stuff that's out there. It's okay. Here's the thing. Like, it's very basic. It's kind of like point A, point B. What makes it boring, I think, is just that, like, Isla and Grimm are boring characters. Like, Isla doesn't really have a personality. Grimm doesn't really have a personality other than being, like, edgy bad boy. You don't feel them connect. You don't feel them understand each other. Like how sex usually makes that happen, you know? Like, there's no... It feels empty. Not from the pros, but just from... These two haven't really had good build-up because, again, it's this whole entire thing where Grimm has just been obsessed with her since day one. I have no idea what he finds appealing about her. Is it the thing? Is it, like, her warrior's powers? Because she's been doing a terrible job, like, showing that. She's not been doing a good job. It's like, well, what is it? The fact that she can make potions or something? I don't know. Remember earlier I asked, okay, I want to pinpoint moments where they have their good chemistry. I can't find it. Like, yes, they flirt and they banter, but it's like, it's that question. It's like, okay, whatever, you guys love each other, but do you guys even like each other? Like, is hanging out even enjoyable for the two of you? Because, like, every single time they've had interactions, Isla's just like, I don't know what to do with him. I can't trust him. I don't know what to do. What is he doing? Why is he staring at me? Oh my god. Like, it's girl. Alex Astor wants to make him so mysterious and so far away that he's just so one-dimensional. Like, it's just, like, where's the pizzazz, you know? Like, where's the thing that, like, really makes him interesting, you know? Like, he just kind of says, like, random, like, emo edge bro things, just like, oh yeah, my realm has nothing for you guys. Like, it's so predictable, and it makes you uninterested in the character. It makes you uninterested in both, really. You're not rooting for them at this point. So, again, I guess it's hard for me to critique this sex scene because it's, like I said, the prose of it is fine. Like, the actual words and the movements, like, that's fine. It's nothing, nothing to write home about, but nothing like, oh my god, this is so bad. So there's nothing that, it's just, it's a chemistry problem. The characters just don't have any chemistry for me, and therefore it's hard to say, like, what a good sex scene between them would actually look like. So I'll be honest, I did skim kind of the rest of this book. It's just so painful. And I know they find the heart, and then there's like a bond breaker, but it's not really a bond breaker, and Celeste is evil, and we all called it, and I think Grimm leaves, and it's just dumb. Okay, so that's LightLark. I don't want to leave it there because this is a writing channel. I think you're here not just to hear me say stupid things, but also because maybe you want to learn how to write. So I do want to give my thoughts of what I would have fixed or suggested in order to make this better. One thing that I wrote, which I kind of like this idea, is that the reason Isla has no powers is because she's not actually the ruler. Luke and I talked about this, where it's like, it is undeniably stupid that any ruler would not have a secret heir or something like that. In case, like, you know, for them to die or whatever. I mean, it's just, it's going back to this idea. It's like, please, we need to not do this genocide thing. But, like, barring that aside, it is extremely stupid, even in any real world kingdom, that, like, any ruler would go to, like, a death game and, like, not have an heir. Like, they don't want, no one's gonna willingly bring on a succession crisis, you know? So, my thought is that, instead of Isla being the actual ruler of the Wildling realm, she's a decoy. So the actual ruler of the Wildling realm is being kept somewhere safe. Hey, this is your ruler, and Isla is the only one that really knows that, like, oh yeah, I'm not the ruler. That's why I have to be careful that people don't know that I'm powerless, because I'm not really the ruler, but I do need to kill somebody, so that way my realm stays safe. So she would still have, like, the patriotism for her realm. She can still have this, like, this beat about her being powerless, which, I'll be honest, doesn't really do anything for her interesting plot-wise, because she always gets out of it super easily. Like, there's that one demonstration where, like, everybody show off your powers, and she doesn't, is that the one where she, like, you know, she puts her arm in the fire, and then she, like, puts a potion over it, and everyone's like, ooh! There's so many cop-outs, there's so much plot armor for her anyway, that her being powerless just doesn't make the plot interesting at all. I don't think it was a good choice. Then again, I don't think being cursed would have been a good choice either, because, I mean, being able to control nature so openly is very OP. And also the whole hearts thing. I would have definitely done better world building. I think you could keep the sky theme. That's fine. I would just probably rethink what to do about the Wildling realm. Or instead of calling them Wildlings, why don't you just call them, like, you know, like, Earth Realm or something. That's a thing. Is that Mortal Kombat? I don't know. I think that's Mortal Kombat. Earth Realm. But, you know, just call them, like, Earth Realm or something like that. So that way it's like, okay, Earth and Sky. Like, that at least makes more sense. But the fact that you had to bring in colonial savagery into this is so problematic. I mean, the fact that it's just like, oh yeah, they are savages. I don't think they should be called savages, but I am the one that made them eat, like, hearts and stuff like that. And they don't even wear clothes. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, so I would probably, you know, change it to, like, Earth Realm, make them, like, you can make them indigenous and not savage. I know that's such a crazy concept, but if you want to, you know, take a look at how indigenous people lived and, you know, do that, and if you want people to still call them savages because they don't live in, like, castles and stuff like that, I mean, that's could be interesting, but don't actually make them savages, just make them people that, you know, live as the indigenous people just lived. Which was not savagely. I wouldn't do this whole thing of like, oh, only wildlings can wear every other color, but skylings have to wear blue. You know, moon. I forgot like moonling and starling, who's silver and who's white. It might as well be the same color. That, like, it just makes it really hard to keep track of people. It's just not great. I would give Grimm an actual backstory. If this guy was actually like in a war or something like that, I would have war stories about him. I would have him like talk about the wars and like talk about like, oh yeah, this messed me up. That already kind of gives me something. It's like, okay, maybe he's keeping people at arm's length because he doesn't want to go through that trauma again, which is like, great, we can get behind that. We can, you know, form a story around it. Isla has really contradicting ways of like, where it's like, okay, she knows swordplay, she knows this or that. There's like a point where like she like pressure points like someone ninja style and like knock them out. I'm just like, that's so dumb. Like, you know, if you're going to like do this whole entire wildling thing, it's just like, I don't know, why not just make her a barbarian? If you're gonna go with this savagery thing, make her a barbarian. I want to see that. Again, as I said earlier, if you're gonna go with this seductress route, make her actually, you know, competent in that. If she was trained in it and you want us to believe it, then go ahead and make her a seductress. Make her try to seduce people. Make her, you know, like put on that aura. I mean, there's so many things that I could sit here and say this needs to be better, but I think it just core concept needs to be better. I think if you're going to do Hunger Games, you need to be clear about who the oppressor is, and you need to be clear about like why they're doing this. All in all, I think it was very disappointing on every front. Obviously did not meet the expectations for world building, did not meet the expectations for romance, did not meet the expectations for plot. In terms of character, my favorite character was Cleo. I think she's the only sane person in this entire thing, and I think she deserves better. Okay, that's LightLark. I'm really happy I'm done with this. I am going to return this book to the library, and no, I'm not going to read the sequels. I don't care. Well, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you have a great day. Bye.